my front tire hits the side of his dalla, his minivan, and I go crashing down the berm, down the embankment, into this ditch. About to get into another episode of Patio Stories. This is Alan Carl, World Rider, and today a story is going to come from Tanzania and into Kenya. Well, this is going to be, I think, the 13th episode of Patio Stories that I've done, sharing stories from my more than 10 years of riding my motorcycle all around the world. This comes from Tanzania and Africa, in the middle of a 3-year trip. That's right, I spent 3 years on that trip, all covered in my book called Forks. Nonetheless, I tell these stories here from my patio while still kind of under lockdown in this crazy world of COVID, coronavirus. Great stories. So I'm gonna sit down. I always open up a bottle of wine too. So let's just kind of set this down. It's getting close to sunset out here. I'm in San Diego, California, for those tuning in. And let's get a little more comfortable. We're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about this. They don't really run. There's no fuel, but they'll help tell the story, perhaps. Let's get rid of this thing. Yes. Okay, so before I get into the story, I'm going to open up some wine here. This one, it's bubbly. It's sparkling. You like sparkling wine? I do. But you know, I haven't really had much sparkling wine during this pandemic. I have wine almost every day. But I haven't opened up a bottle of a sparkling wine. Like, this is a Prosecco from Italy. Haven't opened up a Cava from Spain or Champagne from France or a California Sparkler. Because, you know, typically these kinds of wines, wrong or not, you know, wrongly put. Well, there you go. This is a Prosecco from Nino Franco. It's called the Rustico. And I just removed the cage. But, you know, a lot of these times people open up sparkling wine for celebratory things. But it's hardly a celebratory time, I think. But nonetheless, there we go. Okay, we like to drink sparkling wines out of a regular wine glass. I don't like those flutes. No flutes. No flutes. But this is bubbly. Almost looked like a beer for a second, a light beer. But Nino Franco. Whew. Okay. So, I'm going to start off the story by kind of framing the situation. I've been here in Tanzania for about 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more. I'm staying in Salaam. I connected with these expats from the UK, and they had rented a big house just on the outskirts near the beach in the northern part of Salaam, which is the capital of Tanzania, and it sits on the Indian Ocean. I had taken about a 3 or 4 day trip out to Zanzibar, the island of Zanzibar, which is a, trading center for centuries, you know, and it has a mesh of cultures, including Arabia, Indian, and certainly African. It also was in these crazy times of racial unrest in my country here, but Stone Town, part of the Zanzibar was a hotbed of slave trading. There's an auction block rock that's still in existence today, and a jail that's still there from the times that they were auctioning slaves in Zanzibar back until the mid 1800s. Anyway, that's Zanzibar. So now I want to make my way. Two things I want to do is I want to go to the Serengeti, which is a big national park famous for the wildebeest migration. Famous for its wildebeest migration. I want to go to the Serengeti Park, which is in western Tanzania as you get closer to Rwanda in the border there. Certainly to the north is Kenya. But there is a town on the Indian Ocean in Kenya called Mombasa. And it's kind of like Zanzibar without the slave trading, but it's got this kind of rich hybrid meld of culture again with Arabia, with the India, and with African blended together. Interesting food, music, just fantastic. And if I go to Serengeti, the chances of me getting to Mombasa down the line were not. So I wanted to first go across the border from Tanzania into Kenya and go up to Mombasa. It's about, say, 8 hours ride from Dar es Salaam to Mombasa. So anyway, I pack up my bike. I get an early start because I don't ever want to be on the road after sunset. Here, cheers to you. Thanks for joining us. So anyway, I get on the bike and everything's packed up. I'm on a motorcycle that's kind of like this. It's a BMW F650 GS Dakar. Now mine doesn't have exactly these kind of graphics. This is probably a year or two earlier than mine. But it's loaded up. I've got Jessie bags, aluminum panniers on the back. I've got these cloth textile tank panniers on the front. And I also have some duffel bags, Ortlieb waterproof duffel bags that are strapped on top of those aluminum panniers. And I'm ready to roll. Well, just outside of, about 40 kilometers outside of the capital, Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, I'm going through these dusty towns. And what's really frustrating sometimes when you're riding a motorcycle in Africa or even in South America and Asia is when you get into these towns, they always have these speed bumps. But, you know, the roads in between the towns certainly have no speed bumps, and for good reason. You know, there are only 2 lanes, one lane going each direction. They want people to slow down, as there's pedestrians and a lot of people on bicycles in these towns. So anyway, we're coming in, and if you're not paying attention, because it's very dusty and they're not very marked. You know, there's hardly any road lines that are painted, and none of that kind of highlight paint on tops of speed bumps you might see here in the U.S. or in Western Europe. So if you're rolling into town, you're kind of cruising at a speed. All of a sudden, boom, you hit one. And if you're not, you don't have good reaction, it could jolt. You could even throw you off the bike if you're going fast enough. But it rattles your bones too. So anyway, I'm coming into this town and I hit one of these things. So I'm like, damn. So then I put my, eyes, I get my eagle eyes out, so I'm making sure that I see the next one. I'm cruising into this town, and just as I'm hitting another speed bump, I want to downshift, so I grab a handful of clutch, and just as I do that, bing! Snap! My clutch cable snaps. We're telling a story from Tanzania into Kenya, and I'm right now just leaving Dar es Salaam, the capital of Tanzania. I just rolled into a town. Coming up to a speed bump, I grab the clutch and it snaps, the cable snaps. Now my motorcycle has barely 50,000 miles on it, or about 80,000 kilometers at this point. And the clutch cable has never been replaced. So I guess I learned that day that the clutch cable will last you just about 50,000 or 80,000 miles or 80,000 kilometers. But anyway, that's not a problem. I actually have a spare clutch cable. And that spare clutch cable, I already had the idea before leaving the United States, before leaving California, 45,000 miles before going to South America, I had put the clutch cable, pre-threaded it. So it was already in position. All I needed to do at this point was to remove the old clutch cable from the connector at the handlebar and at the clutch near the engine casing, and swap it out. Easy enough, except what had happened is that clutch had stretched so much that when I was trying to get that end, and there's like a little ball next to the end of the cable, and I'm trying to get it into its position, and it's very difficult. I really actually need to get into, I need a tool like a pair of pliers or a vice grip so I can kind of pull it a little bit. So I'm on the side of the road, and as I'm trying to navigate this craziness of swapping the pre-installed spare clutch cable, I realize and I can't do it. But this crowd starts gathering around me. Big crowd of black faces all smiling at me and just, asking me questions while I can see, and I'm getting more frustrated and frustrated. Then this one real tall guy says, "Mister, I can't talk in their accent, so I'll, whatever." He says, "Mister, I think maybe you need some help. Yeah? You want help?" And I explain, I show him what he says. Next thing you know, there's like 5 guys that all want to help me. So I say, no, just one will help me. And he and I grab the end of that thing. It's kind of small, but we're both tugging and pulling it. But I'm asking him to keep pulling, and as he's tugging, then I can kind of wedge. I gotta kind of sink that little lead ball end into the little receptor on the little bracket, the lever that the clutch attaches to at the engine casing. And so as he's holding it, I'm trying to get it in there, and boom, I fit it in. So it's a big clap. Everybody on the side of the road's clapping, and they're all laughing, and it's just kind of a really precious moment of connection and help. I give the guy and a couple of the others who had give moral support, a few Tanzanian shillings for their effort, and they were happy with that. And I'm sure going to go out and buy some coffee or some chapati. That's what their little bread is there. So they get a little bread money, and then I got back on the road now with a brand new clutch cable. So this took a little time out of me. I'm a little nervous that I got to get to the border before nightfall. I want to get to Mombasa before nightfall. There's really nothing between the border of Tanzania and Kenya and Mombasa, which is about an hour and a half to 2 hours north of that border. So I'm a little nervous, but I get on the road. There's another little interesting thing that happened to me back when I was in South America. Now this motorcycle, and this is why I bring this up, this GS 650 Dakar. By the way, little backup. Before I set out on this journey, I had this motorcycle. Now this is just the F650 GS. This is not the Dakar. The Dakar has a bit of beefier suspension, more adjustable, and it has a bigger front wheel, 21 inches versus 19 inches. Now, after test riding this and owning this motorcycle and taking it to Mexico on a trial run, I realized that the 21-inch wheel really makes a difference. It really dampens those rough roads. So I sold this bike and I got one like this. But also what I did to kind of custom fit this is I put these extra lights on the front. I put the lights on the forks right here, and they're PIA lights. They're analog lights. This was before LED was real popular for the motorcycles. The PIA lights originally were 35 watts, okay? 35 watts for each side, total of 70 watts. The problem with this motorcycle, there are a few problems, but overall, I mean, I've now got over 100 and some odd thousand miles on my motorcycle, and it's been to like 80 countries. But the problem is it has a very low energy generator, or alternator as we would have in a car, but they're generators on the motorcycle. And what that means is when you're going at high RPMs, the generator is putting out enough output to charge that battery. But if you start adding drain to that battery, such as a heated jacket or a vest, heated gloves, or in my case, extra lights. Now I had the lights on there not so that I could see at dark, because I'm not riding at night. I don't like riding at night. In a foreign country it's a bad idea. But what I want is a extra light to illuminate, to be more visible. So at least, motorcycles for the most part are invisible. So I had outfitted this motorcycle with these extra lights. And it worked fine. The drain for those 70 watts was fine. But what happened is first in Ecuador and then in Zambia, those lights blew. And everywhere I tried to find a 35-watt bulb that fit into that socket for those PIA lights, I could not find. All I could find was a 50-watt bulb. rather have 50 watts than no bulb at all, I bought and installed the 50-watt bulb. So I've got 100 watts, which is, it's a 30 some odd percent more than the 70 watts for the two 35 watts. And what this meant was I had to be careful. If I was in a high traffic area or I was in a rough kind of road where I couldn't go that fast, where the generator would not put out enough. It would put out enough to keep the lights burning, but it wouldn't charge the battery, and that could pose a problem. So here I am after about riding 200 kilometers, 120 miles, 2.5 hours or so from where I broke the clutch cable. I stopped, and this road, by the way, is very kind of dirt and mold, and I had been going fairly slow with the lights on. And I pulled in to get some gas, always turn the engine off, filled up the tank, and I was probably at this point about an hour or so from the border. And I was just outside a town called Tanga, and it sits on the Indian Ocean there in northeastern Tanzania, close to the Kenyan border. So after I fill up the tank and I go to turn the key on and hit the start button on the motorcycle, it just goes, it's dead. I'm like, oh, great. Well, there's a couple people always in the little market next to the gas station just hanging out. So I recruit a couple of them and ask them if they can push me, and I'll do the old put the bike in second gear, get up to about 15, 20 kilometers an hour, or a little bit, maybe miles per hour, release the clutch, and then bam, I'd get going. Well, after 2 attempts, and these guys didn't speak any English. They were pretty lethargic too. They weren't getting the motorcycle up fast enough. They needed to push harder and run faster. Well, at that point, a guy in a pickup truck, pulls up next to me and says, "Hey, you having a problem?" And I says, "Yeah, my battery." And he points that there's a little car mechanic guy in a little shack right up the road. He says you could go up to see him. He might be able to charge it. And I said, "Hey, maybe you can help me. Why don't you just let's give this one shot. Maybe you can push me." So we position the bike back a little bit towards the gas pumps. It's a slight decline, and he pushes. He gets going. He's much better than the two guys. And boom, the bike starts, and I cruise on, waving goodbye. Do a quick loop and thank him, and I'm on the road. So after about another 20 kilometers, I make sure the lights are off at this point, because the road turns into this gravel, silty, nasty, just corrugated, bad road. I'm just pumping along, standing on the pegs. It's tiring, and I got about 2 hours of daylight left, and I just say, oh man, I know I'm going to be rolling into Mombasa. As long as the border crossing doesn't take too long, and as long as it's open, I know I'm going to be limping into Mombasa at twilight. So not very happy, but it's not going to be a very long ride for 20 miles or so. I'm guessing I'm going to be when I lose light. So I'm on this road, and it's just painfully corrugated. It's dusty, and these dalla, these minibuses. So there's no real mass transit in a lot of the rural African towns. So what they do is just these entrepreneurs, these guys, families that own minibuses, is that it becomes an ad hoc public transportation. So they just kind of cruise through towns, and on the sides of the roads, always one guy is like the spotter, one guy's the driver, and then there's usually another guy collecting the money. Sometimes the spotter and the money collector are the same guy, but they're always looking for people waving their hands who are looking to ride. And a lot of people in this particular route, a lot of these minibuses are taking people to the border, because there's a lot of intercommerce between Tanzania and Kenya. So they're passing me, but I'm get behind one of them, or one passes me, and then he's just kind of limping along. He's not going very fast, and he's spitting these. So you got to understand, this gravel road is not a smooth, easy gravel road. It's silty, so it's kind of sandy, so it gives you this little squirrely on the tires with the motorcycle, and it also has these marble-size rocks. So it kind of also is just it's not very stable. You just don't feel good. And on top of that, when you get this dalla that just passed me, he's spitting gravel back at me. It's hitting my jacket, and the silty dust is creating this cloud. And I'm like, the dust is dirtying my face shield, and I got to get past him. I know if I just get past him and keep and maintain a speed, I'll go faster than him. So these dallas. It's a fairly wide swath of gravel road. It's two ways, so there are people coming this way. But the way these dallas ride, because they're trying to avoid all the corrugation in the road, they keep zigzagging across. So I'm waiting, and obviously I've got just one light on right now. I don't have my other lights, but the guy passed me. He knows I'm behind him. So I wait for him to kind of move a little bit to the right. And he moves to the right, and I just crank on the throttle, downshift, and start to pass him. Well, just at that moment, he has this knee-jerk jar of his steering wheel, goes to the left, cuts me off. My front tire hits the side of his dalla, his minivan, and I go crashing down the berm, down the embankment, into this ditch. I stand up, and my left hand is killing me, especially my my pinky and my ring finger. And then I look at my motorcycle. The mirror is broken. Yeah, there's the mirror. The left side one again. And then my bag, so the aluminum panniers that I use to carry all my equipment, my computer, all this extra spare parts, whatever I have in there. Welcome. For those of you late joining, this is Patio Stories, I think the 13th episode. I'm Alan Carl, World Writer, your host, having a little bit of Prosecco, telling stories here on my patio, although it's getting pretty dark out here. You can't see the green, the beautiful green. For those of you who were in earlier, you did see that. I've been doing these since the lockdown began back in April. I think my first one was actually in May. This is a story about me riding my motorcycle from Dar es Salaam, the capital of Tanzania, heading to Mombasa in the western part of Kenya on the Indian Ocean, a beautiful beach town, and with a rich culture that blends lots of different cultures, Arabian, Indian, and of course African. So I'm on my way there, and I'm just heading to the border, and I've just been knocked into the ditch, crashed my motorcycle. I think I've broken my hand. My Jessie bag, aluminum panniers on there are really tweaked. It's a disaster at this point. I actually, the first thing, this is what I do. So if I do crash, I do take out my camera and take a photograph. So right away, there's a photo of this. It's on my website under this story. I do tell the story in my blog. But anyway, after taking the picture, a guy on a bicycle was carrying a big lumpy bag of charcoal on the back. I flag him down and ask him if he will help me get the motorcycle out of the ditch. So between the two of us, we get it out of the ditch, and I decide that I'm not going to Mombasa after all. I'm not going to break through the border this day because I've got to fix this motorcycle, and I've got to tend to the hand because it's very I can grab the clutch right with the three fingers that feel good, but these two are just killing me. So I ride into this town called Tanga, Tanga, with my pannier kind of limping along. It's hanging only on one bracket, one side of the bracket, and also I carry spare tools and spare parts in a PVC tube that I have attached to my engine protection bars, or as some people call them, crash bars. And this sits kind of right behind the front wheel. Have you ever seen a picture of my motorcycle? You would have noticed this. I still, to this day, have a PVC tube. Well, what happened in that crash is I attached that PVC tube with a couple hose clamps. Actually, 4 hose clamps. But 2 of those broke. So now my spare tool case in that PVC tube is also compromised. So I find this kind of auto repair shop as I roll into this town of Tanga. It's a small town. It sits also on the ocean, the Indian Ocean, there in Tanzania. And it's kind of this building. There's like 5 names of 5 different companies. One is auto parts, one is auto repair. There's an insurance thing, and the guy who owns it's actually an Indian guy. His name is Rashid. And I find Rashid, and I tell him what happened, and he says, "Oh, this is not a good day for you, Mr. Allen." He says, "You're not kidding. My bike I need to jump start because the battery went dead. The clutch cable broke. I had to repair that. And now here I am. I just been knocked off a Tanzanian dirt road by a dalla into a ditch. Ugh. Can't believe it." I show him the hose clamp problem. I show him the the brackets of the Jessie bags, and I ask him if he can fix that. And I tell him you're going to probably have to take these brackets off, and it's made of a hardened but yet soft, malleable metal composite, the Jessie bags. And the best way to straighten these brackets out is to take them off and then hammer them on like an anvil or a very smooth, hard surface, and it will go back into shape. And he says, no problem, I will fix this for you, you don't have to worry. He says, but you need to see about your hand. Maybe you broke it. Maybe you will be in Tanga for a long time. I said, oh gosh, I hope not. And anyway, one of his men take me to, one of his workers, to a medical clinic. I fill out a couple forms. They take me, a technician, a radiologist, takes me back to an x-ray machine. They take an x-ray. They ask me to pay $7.50 for my x-ray. Yeah. Or my broken fingers. But anyway, after the doctor looks at it, he says, they're not dislocated, they're not broken, just a very bad sprain. Don't use it. They suggest taping the two fingers together and maybe even splinting them. So they give me the supplies, and I said, well, let's hold on. If I can, I don't know if I can splint it because of the. If I'm going to ride, I still need to do it on the clutch. I got to be able to have flexibility there. I said, give me the supplies, I'll work that out. And the worker takes me back, and I've been gone not even 45 minutes at this point to get the x-ray. And when I get back, Rashid's there, and the bike is already fixed. And I ask him, I said, what, did you take the brackets off like I told you to do? He says, no. I said, how can you do that? And he says, I am a magic man. And I says, yeah, but I don't understand. And tell me how you did that. He says, a good magic man never tells his secrets. Rashid, legend. Anyway, he's also repaired and put new hose clamps on the tool case that I have, that PVC tube in the front. He gives me a couple recommendations. So Rashid, then when it's all said and done, I said, okay, Rashid, give me the bill. I must pay you now. And he says, no charge. You've had a bad day already. I said, well, at least let me pay for those clamps, the hose clamps that cost you money. He says, no, you've had a bad day, Mr. Allen. No charge today. And then he recommends me to a hotel that's on the ocean, and he knows the owner, calls them, and and it's a little bit more expensive than I would normally do, but they give me a 50% off discount. All thanks to Rashid. LAL is the name of his company. LAL. I should have asked him what that stood for. So you can imagine this day is another one. It seems like a lot of these patio stories, I end up telling these stories of long days on the motorcycle in rural Africa or South America. It started out with an early start, leaving my friends there in Dar es Salaam, goes through a broken clutch cable, and then a dead battery that needs to be jump-started, and then finally getting run off the road by a dalla into a ditch. That's riding the world on a motorcycle. One like this. There's other things that happened after that, but I'm going to leave a little bit the follow-up to this. Now, I didn't go to Mombasa, I will tell you that. I kind of felt that was a sign from above that perhaps I am not meant to go to Mombasa right at this point. And it was around this time there were riots happening and just flaring up in Kenya due to a disputed presidential election, if you can imagine that. As I said at the beginning of this, I really had in my heart also to go to Serengeti and the Ngorongoro crater, some of the finest national parks in Africa with the most wildlife you can imagine. So that's what I did. I changed my plan, and I went to Arusha and then arranged to go across the Serengeti to Rwanda. And I'll leave that story for the next time. Thanks for tuning in. Watch for me the next time on Patio Stories. I've got lots of good things. Cheers to you. Thanks again. I'm Alan Carl, World Rider, your host. Hey, if you think about it, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're watching this on the replay. Lots of great new video content, in addition to replays of these patio stories. Thanks again. See you on the next one.